Welcome back to Box Office Buckets. I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to try to keep this. I like the time frame of the last video. I'm going to try to keep this one about the same. So we're going to jump right into the NFL. First thing I wrote down was Emari Demercado dropping the ball on like the 1 yard line on what would have been a 71-yard touchdown run. It's not the greatest play I've ever seen in an NFL game. Ended up losing to the 0-4 Titans, 22-21, and if he had made that touchdown, that probably wouldn't have happened. It's not great if you're the Cardinals. It's just not a great look for the organization. But, I get that it's easy to jump on a guy when he's down, and everybody's, it's terrible, but it's also easy to not drop the ball on the 1 yard line. But who am I to say, right? I'm not in the NFL. But it's just a fascinating play from this past weekend. The Texans blew out the Ravens 44-10. They're now 2-3. Ravens are 1-4. Not where you want to be with that team. I think this is a team that everybody, really thought had Super Bowl aspirations. They're not looking that way right now. They're looking to be lucky to make the playoffs right now, which sounds crazy, but apparently is true. So we'll see. They'll get Lamar back. I think they'll be better, but I thought they'd be better to start the season. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. The Commanders beat the Chargers 27-10. They're both now 3-2. Trending upwards if you're Washington. Trending downwards if you're the Chargers. Not really where you wanted to be after that hot start. We'll see. I think they're both very good teams, but we'll see how they advance throughout the season. Plenty of games to be played, and a lot to learn. Patriots upset the Bills on Sunday Night Football, 23-20. Probably the first real big win of Drake May's career. Stephon Diggs had, I think, 146 yards, 10 catches. Really great game for both of them. I think if you're the Bills, you're not going to look too much into it. It was a close loss and a good game, but it's a really good win for the Patriots, I think, and Mike Vrabel. They're now 3-2. Much improved on last year, and that's where you want to be when you're a kind of a rebuilding phase. Not exactly a rebuild now. I think they're looking to be at least in the playoff hunt, but it's a really good step for them to come in and beat the Bills. And in Monday Night Football, the Jaguars beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-28. Really great game by the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence gets knocked down right towards the end, manages to get back up and runs it in for a touchdown, which just was incredible. Because when he got rocked, and when he got down, and I'm thinking, well, that's just a blown play. Manages to get back up, and you realize there's really no defenders in front of him. He's just running clear, and they were able to get the win. The Chiefs are now 2-3. They're similar to the Ravens, both disappointing, but obviously did beat the Ravens, so Chiefs have a little bit more to be happy, hopeful about, but still not a ton. Upcoming, we have the 49ers and the Buccaneers. They're both 4-1. I think that's a really fascinating matchup. I think the Buccaneers have come in and been really good. I think right now it sounds crazy, but I think they probably are one of the top Super Bowl contenders in the NFL. At 4-1 with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. I always thought of him in past years as good, not necessarily a contender. I always thought he was he was good. Very good story. But after last year and the way they're playing now, I think they're contenders. I think they're a tough team they're tough for any team to beat. They're playing great. So we'll see where they end up. And the 49ers, despite all the injuries, bring out McCorkle Jones. Had a great game last week. Who knew that he still had that? But really great game going to be a really big game for both teams. I think it'll mean a little bit more for the Buccaneers, obviously, just to keep things going. But, and to talk about Mac Jones, he was incredible against the Rams last week. And I really think he should get another starting, at least opportunity. He can't be worse for some of these teams. So we'll see what comes of that. But, it's not just, a lot of times, it's not just about the on-field play, which he looked really good. Had some injuries, went out there and gutted it out. You got to respect that. But his media treatment, his maturity that we've seen, in press conferences, in interviews, it's things fans don't really give a shit about. But to GMs, to organizations, that stuff matters. And his ability to go in and be the most professional, mature adult in the room. I think it's something that is really going to be looked at when if he gets looked at for another starting position. And then we have Monday Night Football. We have the Commanders and Bears rematch of the Hail Mary from last year. Rematch of the two top quarterbacks of the 24 draft. I think that's going to be a really great game. Get to see Jay Daniels in prime time again. Always fun. So we'll see what ends up with that. The Bears have been trending upwards from how they started the season, but the Commanders also looking just to get another big win to stack them up. So we also had, I didn't write this down, but some big news in the NFL. Joe Flacco got traded to the Bengals. I talked a lot last week about maybe sending Jameis Winston or Kirk Cousins there. I wouldn't have got Flacco. That would have been the decision that I made, but then again, I'm not a GM. But I definitely think he can be good there. I think he's a serviceable quarterback. I just think maybe getting somebody a little more, dare I say, spry. We'll see what ends up happening there. But if you're the Bengals, Jake Browning kind of turned it around a little bit Sunday, but it's just not been as good as you want him to be. So I think it creates a little bit of competition. It gives you some options at quarterback, obviously with Joe Burrow out. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. And I've been really following, I'm really not sure what happened, but the whole Mark Sanchez situation, he's apparently stabbing old people. That's not great. Don't stab old people. But very kind of fascinating to hear a lot about that. We'll see what comes of that. Because originally it comes out, you think, oh man, he got stabbed. And then it's apparently he was the stabber and the stabbee. So I don't know what that's all about. Back in my day, we just used to fight people with our fists. We didn't have all these fancy knives that these young people got nowadays, but or old people got nowadays, apparently. But we'll see what comes of that. Obviously, I'm not super informed, but I have read some about it. I think the main thing I think about this past weekend in the NFL is, there's no more undefeated teams. The Eagles lost to the Broncos, the Bills lose to the Patriots, and I still think, kind of continuing on last week's point, there's not a clear 1-0, 1A favorite contender for the Super Bowl, and I think that's awesome. I mean, that's a good thing. But no more undefeateds, no more, clear top dogs. Like with the Bills and Eagles. And if you're the Eagles, they lose to the Broncos. It's kind of funny. They were 4-0. There's been this whole narrative. Oh, the passing game's not enough. Oh, AJ Brown's not getting enough touches. Oh, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff about the passing game. They're 4-0. Jalen Hurts has the best passing game. Devonta Smith and AJ Brown both get, plenty of catches, and they lose. So it's do you want to get stats or do you want to win games? Because you're going to have to make that decision. And they're the most unhappy 4-0 team I've ever seen. Why do you give a shit? You're 4-0. Just be happy. You're doing your job, playing your role. Don't make it more than it needs to be. But we'll see what comes of that. Definitely interested to see if a couple of contenders kind of come out of the woodwork. I talked about the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers could certainly be a team that does that. But we'll see how the Bills react. We'll see how the Eagles react. They're still probably two of the best teams, but obviously everybody falls eventually. So, yeah. But that's about all I have for the NFL. Come back next week. We're going to have more. It's going to be cool. Peace. So, for college football, a lot of big games this past weekend. I say that on every segment. There's never not a lot of big games, but it's a good hook, right? Miami beat Florida State 28-22. They pretty much cleared out all the big Florida opponents. If you're Miami, it was kind of a blowout for 3 quarters, and then Florida State really put it together in the fourth. Got close, made it interesting. Wasn't able to get the win. Very disappointing if you're Florida State. Obviously, you have that 3-0 start. Then you lose to Virginia. Then you lose to Miami. Two good teams, but I think they expected more after beating Alabama. It's definitely something you can build off of, but there are no moral victories in sports. So we'll see what comes of that. Definitely think they can build on it, though, and say, you can at least say we fought till the end. And they did. I mean, they went out there. Thomas Castellanos went out there, got rocked a lot, still went out there and fought and put him in a position to at least make it interesting. They had 3 onside kicks, and I feel like they didn't really know what they were doing. It looked very confusing. I did not understand what they were doing. I don't know if they did either, but, always practice onside kicks, I think. I mean, just to be safe. But I don't know. Another big upset was, well, that wasn't an upset. The first big upset I want to talk about is Penn State losing to winless UCLA 42-37. I don't even know how to characterize this loss. It's so bad. UCLA had not, they were 0-4. They had not won a game for sure. They hadn't even led. They had not led other teams. They were behind every game, every minute of every game, until you play number 7th ranked nationally, Penn State, who just went to 2 overtimes with Oregon. It is insane to me that Penn State was that close to beating Oregon and right now is completely and utterly out of the playoff race. I don't know how James Franklin has a job still. Not a great look for that organization. That is a terrible loss. I don't care how you fashion it. I don't care what you say about it. That is not good. That is awful for that organization. And we'll see if they can bounce back. Starting to doubt it at this point. I think it might just be, at a certain point, that organization is just going to have to say, I mean, everybody always says James Franklin can't win the big games. Apparently, he can't win the small ones either. So, we'll see what comes of that. Alabama beat Vanderbilt 30-14. Vandy snuck one in on them last year. Wasn't able to do it this year. I definitely think Vanderbilt's still a really good team. Definitely in the playoff conversation. I don't know if they're necessarily contenders, but they're in the conversation. Alabama is thoroughly in the conversation. They're looking really good. They've shook off all the rust of that Florida State loss, and they're playing some Alabama football. So, Virginia beat Louisville 30-27. Overtime. Not a matchup a lot of people talk about, but those are two solid teams. Those are two borderline ranked teams. Louisville, obviously, with Miller Moss, quarterback from USC. I don't know the ACC is going to get more than probably a conference champion or maybe one more into the playoff, but it is interesting to see who could be in that conference championship game. We'll see what comes of that. I think it's very interesting. They have a lot of good teams, not a lot of great teams, other than Miami. But Florida beat number 9 Texas, 29-21. The Longhorns, the Nittany Lions, not a great weekend for either of those programs. Texas starts off, you lose to Ohio State. You're like, all right, Arch doesn't look great. I still think he'll be fine. I just think it's going to take a little bit more than people expect. I think people kind of thought he would just come in and not skip a beat and be great. That hasn't really happened. We'll see what ends up happening there. I don't think the season's over for them. They could still slip into a playoff spot, especially in the SEC. But there's a lot of work to do. And, it gets to a point where there's these teams you expect to be in the playoffs. You're like, oh, what will it take for them to make it? Maybe they're just not good enough. That was my thing with Clemson. When they lost, I was doing all these calculations. Like, if they beat so-and-so, they could get in. I'm just thinking, why do they want to get in? They're probably not even going to do anything. They're not that good. So we'll see what happens with Texas. Not a great loss for them. Big win for Florida. You're super happy about that. That's been a tough start to the year for Florida, but that can really, it's the type of win that can help you build some momentum going into future games. So we'll see what comes of that. This upcoming weekend we have 4-1 Bama at 5-0 Missouri. I think that's a really great matchup. I think Missouri is no one's talking about Missouri. Obviously with Bo Prabula, former Penn State quarterback. Just saying. We'll see what comes of that. I think if Missouri gets a win, they definitely are in the playoff race. I already think that they are. A lot of people just don't seem to think that. So we'll see what happens with that. And even if Alabama loses, they're definitely not out. They'll need a little bit more work after that. But if Alabama wins, it just keeps skyrocketing them up the rankings. And the way they've been playing, I would not be surprised if Alabama won. I kind of hope Missouri wins just for, parity. I like something new. But, and we also have undefeated Indiana and undefeated Oregon. Definitely probably think Oregon's going to get the win there, but Indiana's played really well. And, if Indiana goes in and sneaks a win into Oregon, you're going to start saying, is Indiana top 3, top 4? Because that Oregon team is really good. So we'll see what happens there. I made a post on it on TikTok. Most people said Oregon wins. I think they do too, but we'll see what happens with that. There's a lot of possibilities, obviously. The big thing of the weekend really was just upsets. Penn State loses. Texas loses. Another one that a lot of people are talking about, 14th ranked nationally, Iowa State loses to Cincinnati. Obviously had some injuries, but it's not a great look. I think a lot of the Iowa State program, it's a very disappointing loss. The end of that game was weird because, they always do the laterals and throw it, and the dude just ran out of bounds. There was no time left on the clock. I did not understand that. I feel like at least try to run through it, at least throw something. Don't just run out of bounds. Just give up. This is just, it's a bad look. But I think they'll rebound. They'll be okay. They're definitely still in the Big 12 conversation. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But not a great showing from Iowa State this weekend. But we'll see what ends up happening there. A lot of good games coming up. A lot of good stuff to talk about. We'll be back next week talking about it. So, yeah. Peace. All right. For basketball news, NBA news, the first big thing of the day is LeBron is not retiring. Thank the Lord. Very nervous about that. I was fretting about it for a while. He's obviously announced the second decision. I kind of figured it would be an ad. I think a lot of people did, but still very nervous. Thankfully, we have avoided nuclear Armageddon. LeBron is not retiring. My GOAT, the greatest player to ever touch a basketball. Gonna at least be playing one more season, which we already knew that, but very good news. Very happy about that. We're pretty deep into preseason hoops now. A lot of teams, not playing a ton of starters. We see some from starters, but, the thing I think a lot of people forget about is it might not be the most entertaining to the audience, to NBA fans to see. Obviously, some fans like it. But, for young guys, for veterans, it's a great chance to go out and prove you belong. And I think for a lot of players to shake off some rust, especially for teams that miss the playoffs. You haven't played basketball in, 3, 4, 5 months. Go in, shake off some rust, get ready for the season, and just start the season better than you would have before. And I think it's really smart for a lot of, even, veteran players to go in there and get a few minutes, shake off some rust, get ready for the season. So I think it's always interesting to watch, see kind of the young guys, see who, maybe in, a year or two is going to be an upcoming star. So I think, preseason is more important than I think people think at times, because you can really kind of start to see the seeds planted for how the season's going to go. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to watch. A lot of stuff to keep up with there. We're about 2-3 weeks out from the season. Very excited for that. Start talking about that. I read earlier about Giannis and the Knicks. Apparently was talked about this summer. Obviously didn't happen. I don't know what the trade would look like. I've looked at the scenario a few times. I don't know what the trade would look like. I feel like Milwaukee's going to ask too much, but I also think Giannis could force his way and say that's the only place I'm going to go. I don't expect that from him, but it wouldn't surprise me either. I think this Bucks team could be better than people expect, but I also think they could suck too. It could kind of go both ways. They have a nice floor. I don't know how high the ceiling is, if you know what I mean. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I think Giannis likes Milwaukee. It's just they're not good enough. If he leaves, he's going to want to go to a big market. I don't really know who the Lakers would trade. I think you start to look at the Knicks as a clear-cut favorite. I don't know what they would trade. I would assume Cat and either Mikal or OG. I don't know. Maybe Josh Hart. I don't know. But it's interesting to think about. I think there's a lot of potential there. We'll see what happens this season. I think if the Bucks get off to a bad start, that the fires are going to heat up on that one real fast. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But really interesting, something to keep an eye on. But for basketball, that's about all I have for now. I could keep going, but we'll cut it off there for this week. We'll be back with more next week. Season starts soon. Peace. For movie and TV news, obviously, as I just keep repeating, a lot of big stuff, right? So yeah, let's just jump right into movies. This upcoming weekend, we have Tron Ares releasing. Very excited for that. If you watch anything in theaters with the any type of specialized sound, The one near me, it's like, I don't know what they call it. It's like MXC or something, like blah, 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 whatever. You pay a little bit extra, but the speakers are really nice. The trailer for that is insane. If the movie is like the trailer, oh my gosh, it'll rock your seat. Very excited for that. I have not really seen any of the Tron series, but I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. This one obviously stars Evan Peters, Jared Leto, brings back Jeff Bridges from the previous movies in the franchise. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I think it's very difficult to imagine it not being good. You never know, but I think it'll be good. Also has the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack, which is just awesome. That's worth going to see just for itself. But I've heard a lot of really good stuff about the visuals, a lot of good stuff about the sound. But obviously, don't just hear things. Go watch them, observe them for yourself. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. We also have Roofman, starring Kirsten Dunst and Channing Tatum. Very excited for that. I think it looks like a very fun film. I like the idea. I think it's really fascinating. It's just a fun, creative comedy movie. Very excited to see that. I think that'll be really good in theaters, be really good at home. But excited to see that. I think it'll be really cool. We also have If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, starring Rose Byrne and Conan O'Brien. It's a psychological horror film. I don't know too much about it. From what I saw in the trailer, I think Conan O'Brien is the villain, which is fascinating. I like the idea of that. I don't know that much about it, but it looks cool. You also have Kiss of the Spider-Woman, which has Diego Luna from Andor, and Jennifer Lopez, I'm pretty sure. I don't know too much about it either, but it looks cool. Go check it out. If you're interested in something, go see it. Go get the ticket prices. Even if it's bad, you get to go and tell people it's bad. You know what I mean? You can go online and say, this sucks. It's worth the ticket price. Look for discounts. Like, just go support theaters. Okay, I'm going to get off that point for now. But this past weekend, number one at the box office was Taylor Swift, The Life of a Showgirl. I guess they like show it in the movies or something. $34 million. Very popular artist. I'm not surprised that happened. I didn't really know that this was already like in theaters. I guess it's like a recorded version of the show, I would assume. I don't know too much about it. But One Battle After Another with 11 million comes in second. Yeah. Very popular, very well reviewed. Going to be big Oscar season from everything I've read. Still need to see it. I think it looks cool. We'll come back. I will get a review for that at some point, hopefully. You also had The Smashing Machine come in with about $6 million. Kind of a bomb. It's disappointing, I think, for The Rock. I think it looks really good. A lot of people have watched it and said they liked it. I got a main point on that, but I'll circle back to it here in a minute. Gabby's Dollhouse comes in with $5 million. Still don't know much about it, but yeah. And The Conjuring comes in with $4 million. Still a cash cow. Crazy that this far it's still bringing in money, still in the top numbers. So obviously, just a huge success for them. My thing with The Smashing Machine that I just really want to talk about is, you always hear, we want original films, we don't want sequels, we don't want reboots. But when it comes time to actually spend money and go to theaters to see things, people don't go support them. Whenever I hear someone say, oh, we want more original things, they only make sequels and reboots. Well, what movies do you guys see in theaters? The answer is, I don't go see any, or I go see sequels and reboots 8 to 9 times out of 10. There's an idea in economics that you don't have to ask people what they think. You can tell by the way they spend their money. If McDonald's brought in $1 billion of revenue last month, and Wendy's brought in $500 million of revenue last month, you don't have to ask people, you like McDonald's or Wendy's more. They told you with their money that they like McDonald's more. Alright? And this is my thing. If you want more original things, go to theaters and support original movies. It's that simple. I think you use your dollars to make it known of what you want in the theaters. When all people go and watch is sequels and reboots, I don't know why people are surprised that that's all the people in charge want to make. Because they know that that's what will get the most return on their money. The world revolves around money, all right? We can sit and say, oh, it shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It does. And if you want more original films, you're going to have to convince them that that's going to make them more money. The bottom line, the people who pay for movies that we all watch, that's all they care about. They don't care about quality or critics or audiences. They don't give a shit. They want to make their money back and profit. What's been the most profitable movies? Sequels, sequels, sequels. If you want original movies, go support original movies. And another criticism I read online is, well, we said we wanted good original movies. Well, you didn't watch it, so you shouldn't have an opinion on something that you didn't watch. I do this. I mean, I've sat on here and said, oh, well, I heard this, I heard that. End of the day, I could hear whatever I want. I could hear that the sky is orange and purple and green. It don't mean it's true. Go watch things and then say it's good or bad. Don't be that person who's like, oh, I heard it was bad, so it must suck. Make an opinion for yourself. Stop letting social media, stop letting the internet, stop letting everyone else make your opinions for you. Make opinions for yourself. I had a professor once, and he was very smart. I liked him a lot. He was really cool, and he said, he could never watch the news because anytime there was some type of political, something goes on. I'm not really into politics, but you would go on the news and they would come and they would explain to you what was said. And he said, I have a brain, I have eyes, I have ears, I can form opinions for myself. I don't need other people to tell me what I think, what I should think. Make opinions for yourself. Stop letting everything around you make your opinions. Go out and make opinions for yourself. And be wrong, be right. It's an opinion. You really can't be wrong or right. Some of them are not great. I've heard there's a lot of opinions out there that really aren't great, but go make some of them. Stop letting everybody tell you what to think. All right, I'm done with that. I'll chill. For TV, we have the Peacemaker finale Thursday. I've almost finished season 1. I'm terrible. I'll get there for season 2. It looks cool. We also have new episodes of Chad Powers. Very, very interesting series. Still haven't seen it either. This is just a recurring theme. But it's really cool. I loved the original YouTube video with Eli Manning. I just think he's funny. But Glenn Powell, it looks cool. Very excited about it. New episodes of Task, Only Murders in the Building, Tulsa King, and Gen V. A lot of good TV out there. There's always really a lot of good TV on. Especially if you watch it weekly. I think binging is fun. I also think setting and watching a show and having to wait is fun. It's what I did with a lot of the Dexter shows that have come out recently. Watch one episode at a time, and I think it's fun because you gotta wait. Makes it a little bit more fun. The main thing that, I really think came out recently that a lot of people have been talking about is the Ed Gein series, Monster, Ryan Murphy's Monster series on Netflix. Starts Charlie Hunnam. I haven't watched it. I watched Dahmer. I didn't watch the one with the Menendez brothers. I understand both sides of the true crime thing because I understand people who sit and say, well, it's cool when it really happened and we want to watch it. And I understand that. And I also understand people who say it's really distasteful. It's really not great. And I also think my biggest issue with it is it changes so much of it and it dramatizes it and adds it to real events. Obviously, Dahmer was a little bit worse because you still have so many living victims. Fortunately, a lot of people from Ed Gein's time are not with us anymore. But I still just think if you want to tell that story, if you want to tell these dark stories from the perspective of, oh, well, it really happened, we need to tell people about it, can you at least be factual? I mean, is the truth so bad that we have to dramatize everything to make it more interesting? And I just think it distorts so much of history, and you're going to have people who watch it and think they understand the situation and really don't. But I also understand it is interesting. Charlie Hunnam looks to have given a great performance. So it's interesting to see that too. And, a lot of people are really into that. I love horror movies. I think true crime, you get to a point where I don't know that it's the best for people's mental health, but who am I to say what you can or can't watch or should or shouldn't watch? But I just think I understand both sides of people who feel about these true crime shows. So, yeah, that's about all I really have on that. I understand. I get both sides. I get it. It's conflicting. I feel it. You feel it. But you also have The Chair Company starring Tim Robinson. Very excited for that. As they say in I Think You Should Leave, they went from tables Her job is tables. If you watch, I think you should leave. You'll get that reference. Now they're into chairs, so we'll see what ends up happening there. I think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. It premieres Sunday on Max. And on streaming, we also have The Lost Bus, starring Matthew McConaughey on Apple, and America Ferrera. Can't forget her. She's awesome. Really interesting looking movie. I think McConaughey's just a great actor. I could watch McConaughey watch paint dry. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a fascinating guy. You also have the Naked Gun reboot. It's on Paramount Plus now. If you want to go watch it, check it out. Starring Liam Neeson. You also have Bring Her Back on Max Friday. I watched it in theaters earlier this summer. It was a great film. One of the most disturbing, messed up movies I've seen. But really fascinating. Really dealing with grief. And, a very complex villain, even though I'm not going to go too far into spoilers. But watch it. Check it out. If you didn't see it in theaters, if you haven't been able to rent it at home, it's definitely worth watching. I don't want to say you won't regret it, because it is disturbing. But from a film perspective, pretentious film, elevated horror, right? From that perspective, you won't be disappointed. Yes, I Play Dirty on Prime with Mark Wahlberg and Lakeith Stanfield, who I think is incredible. He kind of kills every role, and nobody really talks about him. So I've always been very disappointed he didn't get he's never really gotten more of a national spotlight that I think he deserves. But we'll see what happens with that. A lot of great stuff to watch out there. Can't really go wrong with any of the options that I talked about, and there's obviously so much that has come out you can still see. So, yeah, check something out. Make opinions, make reviews. I like Letterboxd. If anybody likes Letterboxd, go in there, make an account, make a list. You can review stuff. You can be, pretentious. And, it's fun. It's fun to try sometimes. But, yeah, that's about all I have for today. I'll be back next week to talk about more cool stuff. So, yeah, people,